Nah. All right, as soon as Barb's back, we'll get started. How are you guys?
Great.
Splendid.
How's vacation?
It was great.
Great
It was
pictures from San
surprisingly
Antonio.
enjoyable.
Did you guys end up renting a house?
We rented a house. It was fantastic. It actually exceeded my expectations. And I was just telling someone, I enjoy working so much that going on vacation can actually be sort of uncomfortable for me.
Yeah.
And I know I'm growing into that. So I know that there's a possible future that involves Nathan and I traveling without kids and enjoying that. But the fact that I actually went on a vacation and had as good a time as I did and really enjoyed being with all my kids was such a gift. Yeah, thanks for asking. All right.
How was San Antonio?
You know, we've been there a bunch of times, and that's where Nathan's dad lives. And that was in part why I was sort of adamant about renting a house, because I don't actually need to hang out in San Antonio anymore. Like, once you've done the Riverwalk, it's like, yep, I got it with the Riverwalk. It's like, Ripley's Believe It or Not, yep, done that.
In the Alamo.
The Alamo, yep, done that. So, all right, we are going to do Ruba. What is another word for Ruba? Seasoned people don't answer. An invocation, yes. So that means you're going to do it?
Sure.
Awesome. Now, what do we... Oh, yeah, that's it. That's it. That's it. All right, Janie and Godfrey just walked in, so let's let them sit down and then we'll get started. We'll just wait for them, it's fine. I'm just giving you a hard time.
I was so disappointed when I first saw the Alamo because I was expecting this big fortress.
Yeah, isn't that weird? It almost looks like, did Universal Studios put that up? Totally. All right, so this is not an official part of the Ruba, although
You threw a curve in here.
a little bit.
Oh, great.
Yeah. The curve is, and you know, there's a way to do it artfully. The curve is to invite people to take a deep breath. You know, it's like not an official part, but it does sort of like provide a pause. And I recently learned that in taking 3 deep breaths, you guys have heard me say this, you literally alter your body chemistry. So it's like you could add that and sound really like,
I know what I'm doing.
yeah. I mean, we should practice.
Okay. Now, do I have to announce each breath, or do I just invite you to take?
Yeah, just invite us to take 3 deep breaths, deep cleansing breaths. Unbutton your pants if you need. No, just kidding. I did say that once. Was that to this class? Oh no, that was on a Sunday. I was like, sometimes I will recommend that you unbutton your. Sometimes I say things like what I said this past Sunday, and with you guys in the retreat, and I'm like, all right, Bob, you're up.
I might as well take 3 deep, relaxing breaths. As we're here, right now, I recognize that God is perfect harmony, perfect balance, perfect peace, perfect love. And being of God, I am also perfect, as well as we are all perfect in this room here tonight. And I bless this gathering and the information that we're about to share, the knowledge we're about to gain. I bless Lola for calling us together, and imparting the wisdom that she has so much of. And I bless the world, hoping that they can all realize that they are part of all this perfection. And so it is.
Oh, yes. Thank you.
Hey, no critique must be okay.
I have one little critique.
We're waiting
Yeah,
for it.
see, now sit there, right?
Are you open? I would encourage you to lose the word hope,
Oh, okay.
because the science of this prayer is to know.
Right.
Now, that being said, we can't actually know that the world will awaken to this. We can hold that as a possibility, but we do our work. It's like on a Sunday, if you guys ever go up for prayer and you say, like, my prayer request is that my mother wake up and get herself together. The practitioner will likely say, and what would you like prayer for? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So there's some sort of like paradoxical quality in that, because it's like, we can hold the awakening of humanity. But I don't know, there was some little nuance in the way you said it that it starts to get a little dicey. Does that make sense?
Okay. I got it.
Yeah.
Say I can, and I hold that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you want to go down that path, it's not really right for an invocation, because we're just invoking the presence for this experience together. But if you were to go down that path in a prayer, we also want to maintain the knowing that, and how humanity is perfect. It's like, again, that paradox. So,
Good to know.
yeah, great. Thank you for doing that. So, yes, Godfrey. Yes.
So, because it's kind of on topic. So I was having a conversation with my friend Dave out.
Yep. New York.
You know, he's
Christian Scientist.
right.
Yep.
So we're having a conversation, and then I did a prayer.
Yeah, pause for one moment. What do you guys remember the relationship between Christian Science and the science of mind in this history of New Thought?
Well, wasn't it coming from Christian Science, but more concentrating on the individual's capability?
So they're sort of like cousins, and they were birthed around the same time. I mean, Science of Mind was a little later, yeah. So I just want to make clear that they're sort of cousins. So when we speak with someone who, like, if you're a fundamentalist religious scientist, there's a lot of overlap between Science of Mind and Christian Science. Like, Godfrey and his friend can speak nearly the same language. Yeah, go ahead.
Speaking of nearly, so then.
Yeah. All right, great.
So then he goes into,
So you do a prayer.
I do a prayer
Yeah, and it's like a prayer treatment.
in that format.
Yeah, 5 steps.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Right, which you recognize as still process. But then he says to me, God's characteristics are limited to 7.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. And so, yeah.
And did he tell you what they were?
he may
Yeah,
have.
yeah. So this is where,
He told me-
say it again.
Life, love, light, power, peace, beauty, joy.
Barb is a flipping wealth of knowledge. She literally just named them. And how did you know that, Barb? Yeah, fundamentalist right there. And I have such admiration for that. Seriously, that's awesome that you knew that. Barb is amazing. Say it again.
Slower. I don't know the exact order, but it's life, love, light, power, peace, beauty, joy. And there's a former religious scientist who referred to three of those as PPJ.
Huh.
Power, beauty, joy.
Interesting, not freedom, not abundance, not wholeness.
Often adds health and abundance, or
Yeah.
churches come up with
Yeah.
9 or whatever.
Yeah. The Christian Science tradition is dogmatic. That would be one very significant difference. So what did you say in response when he said that? Was he saying that like a critique?
Yeah, they refer to an author. Like, yeah, he's like, I guess you haven't read so and so.
Emma Curtis Hopkins,
Yeah.
Mary Baker Eddy.
Yeah.
Emma Curtis Hopkins,
No, but no,
Mary Baker Eddy. She's the
No,
founder. Which one?
male author. he referred to.
Thomas Troward.
Yeah, you know, yeah. To which I said, okay.
Yeah. It's one of those things where I think that this is actually one of the things, I think it's where you start to get like, I'm getting really, really clear about this. There's a resonance to all of life, and the resonance has people grouped together, and then they vibe at like a similar resonance. And so he vibes at that resonance, and so he attracts that world, and you vibe at this resonance. It's why you've attracted a world like Bodhi.
Right.
You know, were you guys at service? Who was at service on Sunday? So I called out that guy, Brandon Robertson.
Yeah.
And I had lunch with him afterwards, and he and I have known each other for a while, and it was fascinating talking to him. He said, you know, every Christian church in this country that is not open and affirming is like in serious conversation around this federal marriage equality issue that's going to be ruled upon by the Supreme Court by the end of this month. And I'm like, there's no doubt in my mind that they're going to rule in favor of federal marriage equality. And so these evangelical Christian churches are having the conversation like, we cannot be on the wrong side of history again. Like we can't, like literally, like we have 2 weeks. We cannot be on the wrong side of history again. And so the largest, I might have shared this with you guys if you were, I can't remember if I shared this Sunday afternoon. The largest church, I'm not qualifying that word church. The largest church in this country is a church called North Point Community Church in Atlanta, Georgia. They have 15,000 people that attend there. All right, 50,000 people. And they are they have recently come out as being an open and affirming church. And the senior pastor there wiped out their entire staff and rebuilt a new staff to ensure that all of it is open and affirming. The reason I find this so interesting is that Bodhi has sometimes been a community that people come in reaction to something else. So I'm not going to go there because they believe X, Y, and Z. So I'm going to find myself here. So as humanity evolves and some of those things deconstruct, then you're left with the choice of not coming out of a reaction to something, but actually choosing something. So does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I've been like really, really fascinated by that, you know, because I believe there will come a time where these kinds of issues, like, we're right now, it's marriage equality. At some point, it'll be the transgender population. Like, we're just sort of, in this evolution of acceptance. And as that occurs, who is Bodhi? What would have you choose Bodhi if you would have previously chosen it as a reaction to something else? Like, I chose Bodhi early on because my mom would have been welcome here because she was in a relationship with a woman, and because I couldn't get with Jesus as my Lord and Savior, or I'm screwed if he isn't. You know what I mean? But those are in reaction to something. So I don't know, it's just fascinating to me. The reason I bring that up is then once all of those things are taken away or fallen down, then it just becomes resonance. It's like people will wind up here because there's a vibe to this place that's right with me. It's interesting. So. All right, so couple things. We are on our 9th week, which means we only have 1 week left together. And this week is a light topic, immortality, no big deal. And then next week is our class projects. So I just want to take a little bit of time to touch base on class projects. I know Joan mentioned them last week, and there may have been a couple questions that came up about them. You guys have been asking me along the way, but I just want to create a couple minutes to answer questions around class projects. Next week, everyone's going to bring a dish to share, a beverage to share, just something to contribute to the group, because it's going to be a very, like a party atmosphere, okay? And then we're going to spend the bulk of our time together witnessing each other's projects. So what next week? That is our last and final class. And remember, your project is your self-expression of your experience in our class together. Yes, Barb?
If we create something that we want to give to others,
Yeah.
how many pieces do we need?
Really great question. We have 37 people on the roster. There are a few people on there that have dropped, and then there are some people that show up inconsistently. So I would say, just to be safe, I would count on 32, 33. That feels right to me, yeah. And you'll probably have some left over. What other questions do you guys have? How are your final projects coming along? Is there anyone that's like, it's not coming along? Yes.
Yeah, so like, are there, like, so what kind of stuff have people done in the past? I guess I haven't really,
Given it much thought.
I thought we would talk about it tonight, I guess.
Oh, well, we've sort of been talking about it all along. So,
Okay.
yeah, it's fine. People have done poems. People have written songs. People have painted things. People have done performances. People have done,
T-shirts.
made T-shirts. Is that what you did? Yeah. I did like handmade affirmation cards. So I made 5 affirmation cards that I hand colored, and then I made enough sets for everyone. And I will tell you, making 5 affirmations for my class was like 40 people. That is a lot of work. And there was something very powerful for me, even in the creation of that. I am not an artist in that sense, you know, but it's the funniest thing. I got access to coloring in these classes that had been dormant for a long, long time. So I would invite you guys to really, like, I don't know, like, do something that will have you be inspired in the process. You know, like, you might, like, if the homework that I gave last Sunday was write your eulogy. Maybe you write your eulogy and you read it for us and sort of weave in the concepts. I mean, that's just an idea. What were you gonna say, Seven?
No, I was just saying that I was trying to come up with something that, you know, I would share.
What was yours last term? Because this is Seven's second consecutive time doing the class.
I sang family.
You sang family.
Because that really did speak to me because it felt like a family after that first class.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
And what was your favorite one that went out? Like, what was your favorite one that you received?
Probably the seeds.
The seeds? Say more about that. Someone gave out seeds, right? A
Mhm.
packet of seeds.
Uh-huh. And I'm so looking forward to finding a pot the right size. And I already have dirt. I got dirt. So just, I like planting. I think it would be such a great way to pay homage continuously to the growth that happened in the class.
Awesome. Awesome. So those are some ideas. What other questions do you guys have about that? Don, do you remember what you did when you took foundation?
So long ago, I don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was a long time ago.
What have you done before, Barb?
Something that I'm going to bring again in a different form.
So we'll keep it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, Nathan is pretty much going to lead tonight's class. I have a core council call that I have to do at 7:30. And so I'm only going to be with you guys for a little bit of time, and then I'm going to come back afterwards. But one of the recommendations in preparing for tonight's class was to share any experiences that we have had with past life regressions. Yes, Nathan.
It's called Beliefs about Immortality.
Why don't you come to the front of the room and provide the context?
It was part of the homework.
Oh, great.
But I think.
Doesn't Nathan look cute?
Yeah.
This is a new outfit
This is my
we got
San
in
Antonio.
San Antonio.
All about immortality. Yeah.
I think he actually found the shorts.
Yeah, I did.
Nathan is very thin and quite tall, and it is not easy to find. Jim, you might understand because you have a similar body type. No. This might be one of those going downhill moments.
Yeah.
I dress like that all the time.
So this is basically a conversation about the home study exercise on page 195. And we don't have to follow the questions exactly, but these are just sort of prompts for conversation.
So do you want me to share my story before or after this?
Well, it can be part of it. I mean, basically it's everybody just kind of sharing their beliefs about mortality.
So today I was at an event. Do you guys remember Jim Dethmer?
Yeah.
He wrote the 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership, and he'll be speaking here again in September. But anyway, I went to an event that he led, and I was talking to it was pretty much all business leaders. It was at the University of Chicago. It was about 50 people. And one of the guys was asking about Bodhi, and he said, do you believe in reincarnation? And I was like, and he was asking, like, does the organization believe in reincarnation? And I'm like, well, I mean, Ernest Holmes did not believe in reincarnation. I don't know that it matters if I believe in reincarnation or don't believe in reincarnation. I believe that I am not this spacesuit, that this thing that we think is the realist is just a spacesuit. And there's an animating presence that gives life to it. And once this body lays itself down, then the spirit and the presence of who I am will go on to its next journey. It doesn't really matter to me what that is. But for some people, they know, like, coming up with a story about what that is very comforting for them.
What do you mean that Ernest Holmes doesn't believe in reincarnation?
In prac training, we talk about that.
I thought that he has the concept that you remain basically human, you take memory with you, and that's how you continue to do what you're now doing. And given that he wanted to move on to be with his deceased wife, he had to expect that some aspect of our current form was going to be his next current form.
Well, but reincarnation, in the sense that we typically think of it, is that you come back into a body again.
Here.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So he believed in eternal life.
Yeah.
Yeah, but not that, like, you're
In
going to.
similar form to take memory with you.
Yeah, I mean, I believe in like I'm working out a karmic journey, you know, and like who knows what has come before this lifetime, and that I'm still like, I'll never forget Mark Anthony said once in a staff meeting, he's like, I'm certain that Lola and I were lovers in a past life and we worked it all out then, because we worked so well together in a lot of ways. And it was like, that was just his little mythology that he made up. And it's like, that's fine, that's sort of fun. I'll go with that, you know? So anyway, so that was sort of my response to this guy when he asked, like, do you believe in reincarnation? And I'm like, well, do you? And he was like, yeah. And I'm like, does it provide you comfort? And he was like, yeah. And I'm like, great, that's awesome. Like the point of this place is, like, in my opinion, is that we're not dogmatic. We don't tell you, you know what I mean? So it was just sort of interesting. So I will just say the backdrop to this is, like, the real question is what works for you? You know, like people will say, well, how do you know God exists? And in one sense, it's like, I have no idea, but that idea really works for me, you know? So I'm going to tell you guys my experience of a past life regression. Joan Coletto, who's one of our licensed spiritual practitioners, does past life regressions. And a former practitioner here, a woman named Linda Michaels, when she found out I had scheduled this past life regression with Joan Coletto, she was like, oh gosh. And I'm like, what does that mean, you know? And so when Linda Michaels did her past life regression with Joan leads you through this sort of hypnotic experience. And at some point, Joan says something like, and now, where are you? And what is your experience? And Linda Michaels is like, I'm annoyed and I'm in my friend Joan's living room. So Linda Michaels had told me the story before I did the past life regression, and I was like, oh geez, I hope that doesn't happen to me, because Joan's being so generous in gifting me this session. I don't want to fake it, and I don't want to have to break her heart, you know? So this is all the mental stuff that's going on before I go into the past life regression. And, oh, you know, I skipped something in our agenda. You didn't interrupt me, honey.
What I said earlier, you're like, I know what I'm doing.
All right. Well, that wasn't true, apparently. I'll tell you the story, and then we'll do a backpedal for a moment. So anyway, so I'm in Joan's, like, session space, and she does this whole process. And I don't know, she's very, very gifted at this. I don't quite get it. But anyway, so at some point, I feel my body is, like, sort of like heavy and like woozy sort of thing. Like, I'm just, like, basically hypnotized you, right? So anyway, and I noticed my body sort of doing these slight, like, twitches, but I'm just noticing them. Like, I'm not doing them. I'm not really quite understanding how all this is occurring. I'm not fully in my present mind. And then she says, I'm going to count down to 5. And when I get to 1, I'm going to ask you a question. And so she said, she did her thing, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Who are you? Or something like that. And I'm like, this is like, I'm not really with it. You know, has anybody ever done hypnosis?
Yeah.
Okay. And I was like, I'm Jesus. And so she said, where are you? And I said, I'm in a like a town, like a town center. I'm in, like, the center of a town, and there are all these people surrounding me, and they're stoning me, and I'm there, and so she's sort of walking me through this process, and a very wild experience, very, very wild experience. And I remember having this very profound experience through each of the scenes that she led me to, which were completely, like, I don't even know where those came from, but it was like, I remember the first one hearing, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. And I was experiencing no pain in the stoning. And then we went, and then we changed scenes and we found ourselves walking to Egypt. And I was like channeling these words that I've never used before, and like thoughts and like not even how I speak. And at one point she was like, "Is anyone with you?" And I'm like, this is sort of funny to me. It's why I share this part. I'm like, my comrade is with me. Okay, who uses what? No, my compatriot. Who uses that word? It was like so random that I said that.
We said was Marcus here.
No. Yeah, no. I said, yeah. She said, "Is anybody else there?" And I said, "Mark, my compatriot." So anyways, just this very profound experience that went on, and there were moments where it was like my body's sort of twitching, and like I think I was crying at one point, I don't know. But I found the end of the experience was me as Jesus, not like Lola, but my essence as Jesus on the cross. And it was a very profound experience of being on the cross and knowing, like, and not experiencing any pain, and just seeing like the perfect order of all things in my journey up until that point. So I'm not really sure why the curriculum wanted to talk about past life regressions, other than to say what I make up about that is that there are so many dimensions of reality happening all the time. And it's like some part of my essence, some part of my spirit was located in the experience of Jesus. And to me, that just speaks to oneness. You know, like that we all have some level of shared experience, and it lives both in the collective unconscious and the collective conscious. Does that make sense? So that was just it was a very profound experience for me, and I was raised by a woman who did that kind of stuff all the time, and I was really like, oh, you know, but it was very cool to have that experience myself. So you guys will circle back to that conversation, but actually I did want to have the conversation about checking in on anything that has come up for you since the retreat. Both those of you that did it 2 weeks ago and those of you that did it Sunday. Who in the room did not attend a retreat? Okay, and Kelsey, will you do it next term?
Yeah.
Awesome, okay. So everybody else attended a retreat. I would love to hear what has shown up for you since that retreat, and how did the construction of your prayer out of the retreat go for you? And who have you not turned those in? Okay, so here's the deal. I find that annoying. I'm just gonna be straight up about that, because there is so little homework that's handed in required of this class relative to previous Foundations experiences. You guys were asked to turn in a prayer for week 5, and then your prayer that came out of the retreat.
What if we turn them in there, because we have them?
Right?
I thought you were supposed to turn in.
Yeah. So I'm saying, who has not done it?
Yeah.
Godfrey?
I only got 2 from May 23rd.
Okay.
Or not 3. He did his one.
So people who took the retreat May 23rd, if you're saying you've done it, you haven't turned it in except for 3 people. So just know that you don't, it doesn't actually count as completing this course if you don't do that stuff. And there's been very little asked in terms of turned in homework. So make sure you have it by next week. Does that make sense? So there was a week 5 prayer that will be returned to you next week. And then there's your prayer from your retreat. Yeah? What questions do you have about that? Okay. All right. So what other check-ins do we have around the retreat? Like, how was that experience for you guys, and what has shown up for you since then? Are you guys hot in here? I'm hot. I'm sweating. It's loud though, that's the thing. All right, we're just gonna be hot. We'll just be hot. Yes.
This is kind of, I'm not sure it relates to the retreat, but, you know, and it's just really funny, not stressing about money. And the reason why money can be stressful is because the daughters go to college and they do these things in the summer. And I like to create opportunity. So I find a way somehow to make it work. And just a series of funny little things. And I would be like, well, for some reason, I can see my paycheck come in for the direct deposit. Why is it $300 less? You know, and I'm like, well, don't stress about it. And, you know, sometimes you play the game, you're trying to figure out how the thing is going to clear the bank. And how's it going to work? Well, if I bounce one, they'll charge me $25. I won't be embarrassed. So I was stressing about this, and somehow I just wrote the check here. You know, I instead of saying
You read it?
50, I
You
wrote
read it?
Instead of saying 50, you know, the amount was $56, I wrote the amount of 56 cents. So I made things happen in a way I wasn't aware of that made everything kind of work out. But I kept refusing to allow myself to go to that place that I was tending to go to. And I wouldn't say that's necessarily the retreat, but the whole course and the level of awareness of things trust, things work out. And here it was, I was the creator of that. It's kind of, we got a kick out of it. Because I'm like, I'm not sure how this is going to work, Bob. And all of a sudden, my daughter sends me an email. She said, oh, the lady said that there's a problem with the check. I just laughed really hard.
Yeah.
It just made me laugh.
It is funny when divine timing can sort of work out in your favor like that.
Yeah. It was, so, you know, I think it's a culmination of everything.
Yeah, cool. What else did you guys experience?
Able to price all the items that I needed and notice that most of them I had.
Wow.
I also got I was given a parking spot in my building because I work for the building, but in the parking spot, my cart fits there.
So you already have a cart?
No, it's coming.
Oh,
The cart fits in space.
that's awesome. That is a really great example of taking these principles into the very tangible world. What Monkey is talking about is his creation was a vegan hot dog cart. That was the form that he wanted to create, the process that we went through. And that's awesome to do that. Yeah, it's like when I knew I wanted to create an intimate partnership in my life, I oriented my bedroom to be conducive for that. Previously, my bed was pushed up against the wall. It was like, well, he could never get in it. So it's like those things can start to bring that stuff to life. I cleared out space so that there was actually room in the closet for that person. Were you gonna say something, Kelsey? No. Okay. Yes, Elsa. We're talking about our experience on the retreat.
Okay, this is good with the retreat.
Yeah, good.
So during the retreat, my intention was to, I quit my job to do consulting, and then I've pretty much been on my own in terms of I don't get paid unless, I'm a recruiter, so I don't get paid unless they hire someone that I send. So it's pretty much, I can go months without nothing. And so I saved like for about 4 months worth of like mortgage payments and bills and stuff like that. And so this was like really big for me, and I'm like, oh, I kept hemming and hawing. So like I tithed to Bodhi, and I made it so every week there's money coming out. And so I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm gonna see.
Oh, you did like scheduled giving.
Exactly, and I like did it through my bank account, so it wasn't coming from my credit card. So it was like literally kind of depleting, but it wasn't depleting. It was like, okay, this is my investment. This is where I'm getting my spiritual nourishment. And then I had been using my credit card more so than my debit card. And then I'm like, okay, no, I'm gonna be confident in the future and use my debit card. And I paid off a couple things. And then as of yesterday, like I made my first placement.
Wow,
So,
awesome.
yeah.
Yeah. And how did that feel?
That was good. Oh, and then that was one of the things during the retreat that I had, like, my intention was, and then when we did the little group, like, one-on-one, and they're like, what do you really want? What do you really want? And so that was one, and then even when I had given it for the board, you're like, okay, how much do you want to bring in? So like really like clarifying that intention.
That's
So,
great.
yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. What else? What other thoughts have you had since the retreat? Yeah, Andrea.
Well, since the retreat, I have looked at 2 different childcare centers, and neither of them were a good fit, but it was a huge step for me.
Yes.
To even just call them and make an appointment and go in and look, you know, like that was a huge step. And then also I got reconnected with, well, my intention was that I am fulfilled in my career where I achieve as my authentic self. So I should probably talk to you, Elsa, since you're a recruiter. And I reconnected with the JVS, which is the Jewish Vocational Service, and they have this huge career moves program that totally helps you and has a sliding scale, and you get a career counselor and you get workshops, and like they totally hold, you know,
Awesome.
in their network, you know. So that all just happened since the retreat.
That's great. Weren't you in just this last
Yeah,
retreat?
yeah.
Wow. Good for you. Yes.
I after the retreat, I was my focus was on health, and my health was not good, and just it was difficult with just regular medicine people. Sometimes you don't feel like you're getting what you need. And so I was dealing with this one doctor, and he just said, "Oh, talk to this person." And he just gave me this name. I didn't even know if it was a doctor or not. But I'm like, okay, whatever. And so I finally connected with this healer, this doctor. And so I went to the first, just this past, yesterday, was it June? Or the day before?
Wednesday.
Wednesday, just to start the process. But my from our retreat, my whole issue was health and getting well and healthy. And so then to find the people who actually were like, they're doctors, but they're not like regular doctors. They actually ask a lot of questions and talk to you about things. It's not like just, no, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this. And it just felt, so what I'm holding myself is I'm healthy, powerful, and can do everything and anything I want to do with vitality, power, and knowledge. And it feels like that.
Cool.
It really does feel like that. I know there's a way to go, but this is like I'm in charge of this. It's not someone else doing it.
Awesome. Abby and Annette, what's going on over there? You both look like you're sort of like halfway in your bodies.
Well, I was going to share, but it was just so weird because you remember what my, what do you want, what do you really want? Nothing like that. I mean, I went home and something totally different happened that needed to happen.
Mm.
And that was forgiving someone or bringing closure to this relationship that had ended. And, you know, I used to bring up things and don't judge me. If I'm talking about, I want to stab him in the neck.
Yeah.
and I would make that go away. But I thought it was gone away, but I had a dream. It was just so profound. I had a dream since the retreat where there was closure. And that there couldn't be closure because I'm not talking to them or anything, but I hadn't worked it out, but I did. So.
And what was your deepest desire? What was your greatest desire that
My
came?
greatest desire was to retire, my retirement Shangri-La. That was my.
So I would actually suggest that they are not related.
Maybe they're not.
I mean, Edwene Gaines would say that forgiveness is intimately related to our financial capacity. So it sounds like that was getting some.
But I just feel so free.
Yeah, that's awesome. Cool. How about for you, Abby? What's going on over there with that pensive brow?
I was thinking of 2 things. Both
both about harmonious relationship. I was in a conflict at the retreat. It was like a day-long disagreement with my boyfriend, and I was like, I don't know, like how we were going to resolve this, and it got worse before it got better after the retreat. But all of a sudden, it was that evening that all of a sudden there was like a dramatic shift that has sustained now, and we, you know, this was part of, I mean, not related to necessarily, but I feel like it was, we've been talking about moving in together, and I felt like the conflict was part of his, like, yes, he said he wants to do it, but there's a part of him that resists, that was showing up in that way. And so there was a significant then shift for the positive on Sunday night. And on Tuesday, I'm like 90% sure we found a place that previously he was questioning whether he even wanted to go look at, but then like we ended up going and loving it. And then the other thing that I was, when I was furrowing my brow, was I was thinking about that it was after I nanny part-time, and the kids there's 4 kids, and their mom did not sign them up for anything for the whole.
Lucky you.
And I was not pleased when that information was revealed the week prior. I'm like, 10 hours a day, 3 days a week, 11, 9, 7, and 4, like, no. And I was thinking, whatever, I have a lot of emotions around the whole thing. And I had this idea after the retreat, like, how can I enroll them in creating something enjoyable? Like, and how, you know, and so I had one conversation with them already Monday morning. I mean, they're already giving me the I'm bored. You know,
Yeah.
we're like day 2. And I was like, I'm not having it. I'm not engaging with that. I'm like, that reinforces the problem. So you could say something to me like, I'm trying to think of something fun to do.
Yeah.
That's a conversation I'll engage in, but I'm not responding to. I'm bored. And I mean, I was talking about what kind of fun did they want to have? What did that mean to them? What were some ideas that they had? And so it's just been an interesting thing I mean, it's not anything I'd ever considered before in terms of trying to enroll them in, you know, having a vision of what they want for something. And so they're bickering a lot too. And so I was thinking today, like, how can I have a good conversation with them about that and about how, you know, what they're expecting, you know, of their siblings is creating, you know, a dynamic. So that's been interesting to play with that with them. That's not those two haven't allowed it very much.
Well, the thing that I thought of when you shared the story about you and your boyfriend is that, you know, have you ever heard the expression, the breakdowns always precede the breakthrough? You know, so you learn, the more you can learn to love your breakdowns, the better off you are. It's like, oh, the breakthrough's right around the corner. All right, I'm going to leave you guys. I do think that we should open the windows because I see some very sleepy faces. And David Letterman keeps his studio frigid cold so that people don't fall asleep. And everybody is 100% responsible for the experience generated in the next 2 hours, 2.5 hours. Yeah?
Yep.
Maybe?
1.5 hours.
Hour and a half? You're also responsible for the hour after? So will you guys open those windows? Because I don't want you guys to be hot and sleepy in here.
Let's just take a break.
I started working on the about the prayer. Emailed it to you.
Bring it next week. Okay, yeah.
That's some good teaching.
I bet.
I thought we were meeting at 6.
Well, I so Shelby said she couldn't make it, and then I didn't do this too, so I thought. Oh, okay. That's why I didn't make that. That's sweet. Okay.
All right, I'll be back.
I don't know if everybody heard, but I was just saying we can take our sort of mid-class break now.
Oh, okay, cool.
So kind of go get refreshed, whatever, and then come back in like 15, 35, 7:35. What I say?
Hey, how are you?
So in that circle, right, which is spirit, law, body. Yeah, and so what he means is that we should control that. He means that using spirit. Spirit is the spirit. Directs the law is what's created. Both things get the effect of it, because if you're not consciously creating the law, then you're unconsciously creating. Which is what you have to effect of.
So I'm not sure why you.
Yes, the voices that in your real life. So like that's what no, but the voice.
Oh, right.
So two different voices. The voices can be
Sorry.
all these negative emotions, thoughts. So the point is that you don't really want to, you don't want to consciously. Yeah, but it's, yeah, but I don't know. I don't know what is that. There are things you have around the and some are negative. I don't let it happen to you.
My daughter says, yeah, people.
She said we do Sunday.
But I guess you can almost take that.
The Sunday. I know her. I mean, she did it in the sweets. And then she did
But the other way that comes up to me is, as a practitioner, as a counselor, what they will say, if you're working with a client will tell you about their life, what's not working, and why they think that that's not like all their beliefs, separation, whatever, fear, whatever. And as a practitioner, my job is to listen to what they're saying, but know that what they're saying is not true. So they're saying what they're saying, but I'm knowing what they say, I don't have any money, or I don't know, I'm broke, whatever, and I have to be able to hear what they're saying. And what Ola was saying earlier, I know in my mind that's who they are. You're everywhere. You know, so there's a way that you can just listen to other people in your life, and they can be saying whatever they're saying, but you're in the back of your mind, you're sort of witnessing this, and knowing it's greater for that person. And basically, as I'm talking about saying prayer, you're kind of saying, you're not actually saying prayer, but you're thinking thoughts of wholeness for them and their life.
You stretch
Thoughts of
your way back.
rejection, thoughts of you're not believing.
Because at first I thought he was like, is that not like he started?
They believe what they're saying, that they're a victim, that they're, you know, life is hard, but you have to hear it and believe something greater for them, that they should take something. So that's really what's here. Yeah, no, I don't think any of it's easy. Just keep working, we'll keep working on it.
Let's see. You watch them? It was on last night. What is that? And then last week it was Peg Turner. That one's actually very interesting. It almost makes me feel sorry for him, because a lot of people have that perception about him just as a white people, and that's it. They just figure out the talent, all the good fathers. And that was good, and that's what it's sad and what happened. So, I mean, nobody's perfect. I mean, it's ridiculous. Exactly. Right. Right. And everybody has that perception right away. Then you're back on it. Right. There's always two sides to a story, and there's, yeah. So, did you see this week and last week? You just said you watched that. Song on TV, where they talk about musicians or old stars that kind of made it, but not quite the mainstream. Yeah, I thought you said you watched it. We talked about it last time. Okay, well, I was telling you that this week it was Otis Redding. And then last week it was Ike Turner.
good with those things, but that is way outside of my comfort zone.
Oh, it's all right. This whole family.
Right.
And he was really young.
He's the only one that shopping.
Yeah, the photos that we,
Yeah.
there's some grotesque.
Well, my thought, then I would want she was missing. To do both.
You have to go south, you have to go south of 31st Street.
Oh, we did that.
I went on the west
I
side.
was in the Bronx. I was in the Bronx, New York.
Yeah, right in Hyde Park.
Yeah, I came up, like, when I came to Bronx, they raised me, they had the civil rights. Just to, I think,
Okay, because I thought we talked about it like a couple of weeks ago. So they know what it's. Yeah, because it was very just like last week they did like. Still in prison. No, he's not. He's been, he's not.
Oh.
Yeah, he's not. They were just talking about his talent and how people just, pigeonhole him. Well, that's when he was in drugs and he was, Well, I'm sorry, I think you would. Well, I know, talking about his growing up and what he saw. Right. And it's not things necessarily, but it is a reason, and if they just didn't know any better, where you, right, they didn't know any better.
Is next week our last class?
Yep, yeah, and so Lola was saying, that, sorry, Lola was saying, oh, yeah.
So no, like,
No, it's saying, creative project. Did you see that?
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a creative project.
Okay. So can
People kind of brainstorming. Have you taken part before?
No.
Yeah, I hadn't either, and I always really liked to read that.
Let her switch, right?
The expectation would change. Okay, so
Right.
yes.
Which is a video.
Okay. So people are really teaching it, and today I called really fast, so I wasn't sure what. Here's what she said. Things people done in the past. Poem, song, painting, performance, information cards, plans. Something that you're supposed to, I don't know if this was a class itself, but take your expression. It doesn't have to be anyway, but like let people jump in. This is this, but does that help? Like, yeah. So like some people, I guess this sounds like last time someone brought a bunch of seeds or something for everyone.
Oh, I'm sure.
Or people just start like up and you want that.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, at least.
Okay, so she said 37 people is like a lot. She said if you're gonna like bring something, she said like plan on like 32. Because a lot of people drop. Sources of the project. If you have a takeaway thing, we can put in the project. Hey, bring that many.
Yeah.
And then we need to bring some sort of like surgery to that.
She
No.
was saying in service, she was
Yeah.
talking about that.
Yeah.
So we don't need to turn it into.
No.
Yeah, because I had.
You could do you.
I am here.
That's like so important.
That's what? More, oh, yeah, well, let's hold it, it's more thing.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah,
have,
getting the point.
if you could do the first 1 minute and 38 seconds.
Right.
I can do it. You just can plug it in for me and then turn the volume on. Well, I'll just wait until everybody gets seated. I can push play.
Still, it's not right.
Yeah.
I
I'm sorry, Dave, real quick, one more question. Do you know when the next, foundations class is gonna be, like the fall probably? Or only like?
I
once a
don't.
year?
Lola's gonna come back at the end, so you can ask her. They're offered pretty regularly, and I would guess fall. Yeah. Yeah. Are you thinking of taking it again? Okay. Cool.
I don't know how loud it's gonna be, so I'll hang out over there. Or you can
Okay.
let me know. I'll play it.
Okay. There's like a bell sound in the beginning, and if I hear that, I can adjust. So I can play it. It's fine. Yeah. So I just push play, and then I move. Show me what the volume is.
No, no, no. Well, not at all.
All right, guys, we're coming back together now, and I have a little sound clip. I guess it's like a meditation almost, but it's just it's a quiet. Basically, it's a segment from the book Stillness Speaks by a man named Eckhart Tolle, and one of my favorite things to do. I love his audiobooks because he reads them himself, and I find his voice to be kind of very soothing. So we're coming back. We just got re-energized, and now we're gonna take it down a little bit, but it's only for like 1 minute and 38 seconds. But he has a chapter about immortality in there, so I thought it was appropriate given today's class. I don't know how loud it'll be. But.
Chapter 9.
There.
Death and the Eternal. When you walk through a forest which has not been tamed and interfered with by man, you will see not only abundant life all around you, but you will also encounter fallen trees and decaying trunks, rotting leaves and decomposing matter at every step. Wherever you look, you will find life as well as death. Upon closer scrutiny, however, you will discover that the decomposing tree trunk and rotting leaves not only give birth to new life, but are full of life themselves. Microorganisms are at work. Molecules are rearranging themselves. So death isn't to be found anywhere. There's only the metamorphosis of life forms. What can you learn from this? Death is not the opposite of life. Life has no opposite. The opposite of death is birth. Life is eternal.
Allow yourself to be with that for a minute. So that's my like all-time favorite quote, I guess, about this idea of immortality. So with that, I'd like to open up our conversation. There's the homework, the home study exercise on page 195. I'd love to see, if anybody has any comments about what he said, or any of your own ideas or beliefs about life, death, and immortality. We have probably about 40 minutes or something like that, just to kind of have a conversation, kind of learn from each other. As Lola was saying too, in the facilitator's guide, they're encouraging us to share if anybody's had any near-death experiences or any past life regressions, and what have you learned if you had something like that? What maybe did you take away from that experience?
Not necessarily towards the lines of that, but it's kind of interesting that I wasn't talking about last week. This whole week, my mind hasn't kind of been on doing the study, but it's definitely related. So last weekend, I went to Milwaukee for a volleyball tournament. I was going to visit my mom. Like 2 days before I was going to go there, my mom said she was checked into the hospital. And she's not very good at explaining what's going on with her or what the doctors tell her, so it made me a little bit concerned because we were just going to go out and have lunch. But it ended up that I went to the hospital just to spend time with her. And then, of course, my mind started to wandering like, okay, am I a bad son? I haven't visited a lot, even though we're, not that far away, but I don't have a car, so it's not as easy for me to just pick up and go there sometimes because I have to kind of plan it out. But you know what, we were there, and at first her husband was there, and we were kind of just doing small talk. And then once he left, it's like I got us something to eat, and we had a really, I just sat there, I looked at her, and I was just like, you know what, I'm not going to have any judgments around this or allow myself to get worked up about it. I'm just going to hear kind of what she has to say or whatever. We had like this really deep conversation, and it was a little bit of overshared because one of the things she was talking about was sexual, and we never had any kind of sexual conversations going on. I'm like, okay, this is interesting. I'll go with it and not judge it or whatever. And then it's like I found out that, and her husband's very supportive, and she felt very supported by him because it's like anytime she's had any physical ailments, he was like, always go to the doctor, get it taken care of. So I feel at least she's being supported there, so that gave me a little bit of relief there. And it was just an interesting weekend. It's like she got checked in again like the other day, and I called her, but she's out again. So, and it's a little frustrating because she never knows what the doctor explaining to her. She's not very good at that. So I'm like, well, what do they say? What do you need to do or whatever? Is there something I need to do or something? And so I just thought it was very interesting. That deep conversation and just kind of being present there and not, I don't know, getting all in a panic mode or worry mode or anything, which sometimes I can do.
So what do you think created that access to that deep conversation? Like, what was it? Like, why does it happen then and not like every day? Or
I don't know, there was a part of me that just said, I don't know if I actually said these words, but it's just kind of the words that feel right now. Just be open. Just be open. It's like whatever happens, because I was going to actually go take us out to dinner, and then afterwards I was going to hang out with some friends. So sometimes I can be in this manic rush to like, okay, I do this, and then this, and it's like I don't allow myself to just relax and just hang out with the person sometimes because I'm always thinking, what's the next thing I have to do for the day?
Yeah.
And I just let that go, and I said, just be open. Whatever is here, it just needs to be here right now, and I just wanted to spend time with them.
Yeah, so the extenuating circumstances sort of were such that it called you to be present.
Yes.
In that moment, to her, in that moment, yeah.
And I know she really wanted that too, because she was feeling lonely in the hospital, and she just wanted somebody to talk to, and we don't get to see each other that often. So I mean, I know it meant a lot to her, so it was like kind of good to be able to do that.
Yeah. And so I think that brings up a good point, because like in this environment, it's easy to talk about, this idea of mortality, I guess, immortality or mortality, but on a sort of spiritual level, and say, oh yeah, well, immortality, we're all immortal. But I've had that some experience with my mom. I found out that she was sick, and it kind of put me into this, what? We're coming, and it's like, it's really great. And then same thing with funerals. It's like, it's like, it might sound weird, but it's like, I like going to funerals because everybody's just so present to the life that was lived. And there's a feeling of sacredness to me. And we make time, we'll clear, in our busy schedules, we'll make time when somebody's in the hospital or when they've passed away or whatever. it's like a break from the reality of our lives. But yeah, I was surprised that when I heard about my stepmom, how emotional I became. Because with this topic, I can be kind of like cerebral and spiritual, but not really emotional, if that makes sense. I can be kind of disconnected from this concept of death, because we'll say, oh, well, life's eternal, and then I'm just like, oh, well, like, I don't know. But the reality is, if somebody's in a precarious situation, you don't know if they'll be here one more day or 10 more years. You're like, I bet I'm gonna cherish this moment to be and enjoy their whatever that is. So thanks. Does anybody else have any thoughts or sharings? You can go.
So death was always a fearful thing because at an early age, I used to get like visions and have like encounters and things, and this was before I even knew what it was, being like 7, 8, having like these powerful intense dreams and presences in my room. It was really always a very scary thing for me, like death. And I used to like go into this place of like making myself afraid to live on, because I would be like, this is all a dream. I'm going to die someday. Like I would do these weird things, and it wasn't until I started becoming one with them and understanding that it's just a process and that it's never really official in my own thoughts, is that it's not an official death that happens, that it's just a continuum. Like I'm very nonchalant around that sort of thing now, like just that same way. Like, and so to the point where my family would get together and they put some headstones on my grandparents' grave, and they were like, we're gonna have a ceremony, we're gonna come, and it's like, but they're not there. And they were like, well, we're gonna do this, and I didn't end up going, and the family were kind of felt slighted. And like when people died, even when my mother passed away, I was just kind of like, I didn't cry or anything because I knew I was like, that they're not there. So I'm very nonchalant. Like even when I don't like to go to hospitals, because I can feel the energy in hospitals, and it's like I get real. Like there was one of our members here was in the hospital recently, and I went to visit him. He and I are kind of friends outside of here, and I went to visit him, and I remember like that was such a big thing. Like I don't even do that for my family members, but I was like, wanted to be supportive. So for me, death has always been this kind of I've been very disconnected since that time of being a child, where I was so afraid. Now that I've kind of moved on from that space, I get real like, except it's weird, except when it's someone else. And like when it's in my timeline feed on Facebook, I get real like, you guys, we have to be very present and be, their ancestors now, like with Maya Angelou and that sort of thing. So it's kind of weird. I don't know. It's kind of confusing and all over the place, but thank you for listening.
Do you have to be dead to be an ancestor?
Well,
is that part of the definition?
In
I never thought about it.
Well, in African culture and in just some of the circles that I travel in, generally when you leave this life and go on to the next, you become an ancestor or a guide to like continuously watch over those who you are connected to in your soul.
Yeah, I can relate to what you're saying. And I know as a kid, and Lola's told the story before, that she used to she used to say her name to herself, like the sounds of her name. Laura, her real name's Laura. So she said, Laura, and she just would ponder. As kids, we think about some of the things that as adults we completely overlook, and we don't even, we're so busy, we don't even think about it. But she was there, Laura, thinking about like the sounds of her name. Where does that come from? And like life and death, and I also could be accused of I kind of, way I describe myself around all this stuff is kind of being so spiritual sometimes that or emotionally disconnected from it that I think for others it occurs is like cold-hearted.
Yes.
But
Say that about me a lot.
but I'm not really cold-hearted, and I think that what it is for me is, and then this is the funny thing, because I kind of flip-flop, sort of like what you're saying, like I'm like this one day, and the next time I'm like this. But part of my, I think part of it is I care and I feel so deeply and so strongly that I'm afraid to connect with the feeling of death and loss and love and separation. And I think that as a kid, I've just always been, I remember when my dog died and I was just crushed, you know, and it's like, I'll never do that again. Right. So I'm just going to be spiritual. Yes. And then I don't have to feel that, like that loss, the pain of loss.
Emptiness, you know, and I know like when my father died at 12, that was like heavy. Yeah. And just the guilt around that, and just when I saw others leaving, and I just remembered having this moment where I got a stern talk to myself where I was like, okay, do you understand what's going on here? And I would like talk to myself about what things mean, and I would logicize everything. I would come up with like logical solutions, and this is why it is. And then it got to the point where now when people talk to me, I have been accused of being like, you don't feel anything, you don't feel like, and I feel things, but I've learned how to, when it comes to certain things, just kind of have a real disconnected, detached approach, because then it allows me to see things from a greater perspective where I don't have to necessarily be connected to it emotionally, but I'm able to like kind of hover over and say, okay, this is what needs to happen. This is what
Yeah, I think that, so in, I think, oh shit, I'm kind of losing the thought there. I think that the challenge, the opportunity, and so what you're describing is what we typically call like spiritual bypass. You know, it's like, it's sort of intellectualizing life's experiences and explaining it so that we don't feel it and we don't actually experience it fully. But there's also the guy, Jim Dethmer, who had that, if you guys were here, he was talking about above the line and below the line. And one of his, and he has this book called 15 Commitments of Leadership, I think. And one of his things is, I'm committed to fully feeling my emotions. And so what I'm hearing and what I can relate to in you is not fully feeling my emotions. And so what I think, but on the other end of the spectrum is there are people who fully feel their emotions and get trapped in their emotions. So there's this opportunity with death in particular, and it's a tough one because the emotions are so powerful, right? But it's the balance of the two, of yes, I have powerful emotions, and I am strong enough that I can admit that this really sucks and it really hurts. And I'm like devastated. But at the other hand, remembering having that consciousness, the ability to pull yourself up from that. So you're feeling it, but you also have the awareness that this is not the truth of that person, this is not the truth of me. Life is not ending, even though it may feel like it. Like, I think that for me is that's where I feel called, is to kind of allow myself to have the emotions, but yet maintain a presence of mind that doesn't get engulfed in the emotions. And so, wow, that's cool. Yeah.
That's real.
So yeah, this is interesting. You know, and I think when it's a parent too, it's like, I haven't lost a parent yet, but I'm told that when your parents die, that's really powerful. Like, because what happens is, on a subconscious level, as long as their parents are alive, I believe that there's somebody taking care of me on some level. But when your last parent dies, I'm told it's this weird experience of like, I'm it. I have to be fully responsible for myself now, and I have to be grown up, and I can't go home to mom or dad anymore. You know, but again, I don't, my parents just, I'm just imagining, but yeah.
Because like I find myself sometimes saying like, I remember as a kid when she used to blah, 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 and I just start to remember those things and like, it's like now what is it gonna be like to not be able to kind of say thank you for the little stuff that you do that I do remember as a kid, because we weren't rich, but I do remember having a good childhood time, and it's like all those memories kind of come back into your head again that you kind of forgot about for a while, but they all come back again. It's interesting.
Mhm. Anybody else have any, again, there's not really a right answer here. It's really just that question of what do you believe? Yeah.
Been like 30 years. My oldest sister was raised by her husband. She lived out of the country. So we didn't find out for a while because, anyway, we finally got a call from the consulate over there, and we found out that way. And then because of the complexities and the rules and different ways of treating dead bodies, you know, we had to grieve, and then we had to wait for the body to come over to really have a service. So it was really just kind of awful thing, and I was a young 20-something-year-old person. And I was in a lot of pain physically too. I was just like a big knot, and I was lying down, and I was feeling just this whole flood. And I was really pissed at God. And I'm going, you know, what's the point of this? This seems like such a waste to have, you know, why bring somebody into the world? Why have all this creation, all this wonderful, blah, blah, blah? It's just to like snuff it out like that. It seems really stupid. I just kept recycling these thoughts. It was very, very, and then all of a sudden this voice just came to me. It was like, I heard it. It came in like over here. It said, God made something new again. And I was like, what the hell was that? And it's all it said. And it was a female voice. And I'm like, that was really strange. So, Elton John fan. Everybody knows Elton John's song, Funeral for a Friend, like a 12-minute song. You don't hear that on the radio, much less as a single song being played. You know, and this is one of those things I remember. I was driving by myself on the way to the service when it finally happened, and I had the radio on, and that song came on. I mean, this wasn't an album size or anything, and I was like, even back then, I was not into this mindset, but I went, oh my gosh, that happened for me. You know, and it just was, I think it was my first knowing that God's there. And so when I feel about this, I'm like, I don't know what happens, but it's not all for waste. I know that. There's more to this. And it's really neat. And that phrase has come back to me in not many different ways, but at different points in time in my life. It's come back to me with a slightly different flavor, or like another, oh, aha, you know, just another layer of understanding of that.
What was the phrase again?
Yeah.
What was the phrase?
God made something new again.
Yeah. I'm sorry, my writing. I'm just sort of writing for myself. But,
This looks like it's up here for all of you.
Yeah.
We can walk up later and see what you wrote.
yeah, I just that what you're saying, that was like reminding me of he was talking about in the audio, talking about the metamorphosis of life forms. That life has no end. It's just a kind of a metamorphosis. So it's in one form, and that form shifts into the next form, and that form shifts into the next form.
Yeah. I don't know. I kind of wonder if it was her. I'll never know. Well, I think they actually do. I do believe I will know. When my time comes, those things will make more sense to me.
Yeah, I think, and that's where what Lola's saying is relevant. It's like you can make up whatever meaning you want about what it was, you know. So if it, you know, say it's her, you know, and embrace that, you know, without hesitation. Barb.
You're talking about moving on. If anyone asks me, you know, what I think about life after life that we're in here, my answer is that I don't care. And the reason that I don't care is because I have been provided for in this life I've been shown how to live, I've been provided for food and shelter and money and whatever I need. And I just have a belief that whatever it is that happens to me next, I will get what we have here is earth lessons, I will get the lessons that I need to live in whatever form. But I have a handful of friends, maybe more than a handful of friends who are Christian fundamentalist kinds of friends. They're all out there wanting to pray for me and everything, and it's so sad that I have the beliefs I have. So I usually get on their last nerve by telling them that I just figure I'm coming back as a gnat. And I don't care, and that would be okay. And actually, when you think about it, a lot of people swat at gnats, but you never get killed when you're there. You just get moved out of the way. I Googled the life of a gnat, and I forget, it's either 6 days or 12 days. And after that, I get to be something else. So I just tell everybody I'm going to be a gnat, and that I will be taken care of, I will be shown how to live, and I'm going to be fine. And I don't have to deal with, oh, you're going to see your parents in heaven, stuff that makes me uncomfortable. It's like you said, we talk about moving on and pick something that's comfortable, because I have stuff out there that is not comfortable for me.
Yeah.
That involves seeing my family members, and so I just have a whole different line of thought.
Yeah. Yeah. So our trip to San Antonio, Lola said, was to visit my dad. As it turns out, my dad is fascinated by the afterlife. And we had a conversation about that. I'm like, because I'm sort of like you, I don't really care that much about the afterlife, you know. And to me, it's interesting because Lola, myself, and my dad are all really passionate spiritual seekers. And then when we each said why, what is it that motivates our spiritual seeking? What is it that we're passionate about? Each one of us had very different things. Even though we all seem similar, we can kind of start to break it down. Anyhow, my dad's passion is afterlife. Mine hasn't been. I'm more like you. But anyhow, we were there, and I'm like, Dad, I forgot to bring bring any spiritual books to read. Do you have any easy reading books? And of course, he's like, oh, this is the best one I've read in a long time. And I bring it home, and I'm like, this is all about the afterlife. I'm like, I don't care about the afterlife. But I started reading it just because he recommended it. So this book was called, and so if you have an interest in the afterlife, it's an interesting book. It's called Answers About Life After Life. And the subtitle, I had it written down here someplace. Basically, but the subtitle, the subtitle of the book is A Private Investigator's 15-Year Research Unlocks the Mysteries of Life After Death. And so that's the truth. The guy was a private investigator. And so what's cool about that in this book is he took that sort of very analytical, logical, sort of interviewing kind of methodology, and he interviewed people who had past life experiences, did the past life regressions, and these kinds of things, or had near-death experiences. And he found out from them what they saw, or he interviewed psychics or people who journeyed into those other realms and pieced together the consistencies in all their stories, and then wrote this book that basically was based on interviews with people who had seen sort of life after life, if you will. So
That sounds like an exciting book.
it's an interesting book, and I'm just kind of not into afterlife because I'm all about how to make this life the best I can. And actually, for me, the thing that motivated me was how I can use this life experience to experience the greatest expansion into the Christ consciousness that I can here. And so when we're talking about eulogy, this is a little bit of a tangent. We're talking about eulogies, and I was talking with some people, and I said, well, what would your eulogy be? My eulogy, if people could say one thing, on my tombstone, I wanted to say, he was Christ-like. You know, just that, because that's what and there are qualities that I could go into more depth. And there's a part in this section about Christ consciousness. But anyhow, with regard to that book, the part that I read that was interesting to me, which I had not heard before, and this is using some terminology And Lola doesn't know about this. So that's when she's leaving, I'm like, you're gonna miss something. Some good teaching. So we've never taught this. It's not official Bodhi stuff, but it's a little bit out of the book. It is out of the book. But I thought it's interesting that it's relevant to the topic of immortality. But basically the way that, they conceptualize in his interviews, what he said is everything that just like we say here, everything that is God. And that God basically sort of subdivided itself into different souls. And basically the soul, and so I'm showing these souls here like as a pie, but then the soul then is like that personal, so then the soul then individualizes itself into a spirit. And then the spirit comes into a body, and the body has a name, like Jesus. And then Jesus, I'm basing this off of Lola's story earlier. And then Jesus, after Jesus dies, his spirit retracts from the body and goes back to join its original soul, but then can reincarnate as a new body, in this case, Lola, perhaps, And then when Lola dies, the spirit retracts again and can be reincarnated as a gnat, or whatever. So that's basically what how this guy explained it, is that all the souls collectively are basically God, and that these voices and the guidance that we might get is actually the life energy in our soul that's communicating with us as an extension of that soul that we call spirit, known as your name. So I thought that was kind of an interesting concept. It may seem a little big but anyhow, I just thought I'd share it.
So you were saying that if we hear communications, it's from our own soul. Is that what you just?
I mean, that's what he's saying, is that there's sometimes we feel a sense, like a presence of something that, like intuition, we can call it that, but it's like a benevolent presence, hopefully. And so that he was saying, I mean, that's my interpretation from reading this book, that intuition, that guidance is coming from our soul, which is kind of trying to direct us. If we listen, it's trying to direct us into having the right experiences for us. So whether it's like a career, or whether it's, a church, and Lola was talking about resonance, it's like, where are we being guided and what's guiding us? I don't know. I mean, again, this is all hypothetical. I haven't experienced it. So this, I just, it's sort of it's getting back into that kind of world of being intellectualizing things, and just sharing ideas that are interesting. And, maybe that's what you want. Maybe that's what I want to believe. I don't know. But so yeah, I don't know. I didn't read the whole book. I just read, the little snippet.
What's so interesting about that is that that just so resonates with me when I used to meditate and really have these like out of body experiences. That's where I first learned about astral planing and different things that just being translated from this place. And one of the things that I used to constantly get is that no matter what my perception is in the moment of having a bad day or a good day, that I'm constantly on this conveyor belt toward good. That no matter what, like, even when I have a perception that I'm off key or below the line or whatever, that I'm constantly being guided toward something greater than what I perceive it to be. That my limited perspective is based on environment, upbringing, conditions, or whatever that's here that's tangible. But there's yet a space that is not even perfection. It's almost like unconditional ease. It's like not even, it's greater than perfection, because perfection still is limited at its best based upon what I believe or view as perfect. And so it's like even supersedes perfection, and it's like constantly shifting and moving, and that guide that is being spoken about, that was kind of like what I had gotten in that meditation, that you're constantly being guided into this space. So that's That's interesting.
Yeah, and there's the reading in the homework about Christ consciousness, and Eckhart Tolle says that Jesus, he calls Jesus and the Buddha, and a number of other people, he calls them early flowers. So like as a landscape designer, there's some plants that bloom in May, and then there's some that bloom in October. And so which one are we going to be? You know, so maybe Jesus bloomed in May, and now he stopped blooming because he's, you know, he's kind of gone now. But maybe I'm going to bloom in October, you know, and what I think, I don't know, maybe I just make this up, but somewhere I heard, I personally believe, and I feel like I heard this someplace, is that my awakening, your awakening, like the awakening of all of us individually is inevitable. So the awakening of human consciousness is inevitable. However, it just that we can make choices that accelerate that awakening and choices that constrict. And so that's why I feel like I'm here, is to awaken, and that's why I'm at Bodhi, is to accelerate my awakening. But that doesn't really have much to do with, I mean, and I guess what it is, the way that it connects to immortality is then when you awaken, you're recognizing yourself as an infinite life, which is essentially, I think, what happened for Jesus without knowing. Yeah, and you know that, like Eckhart Tolle said, that like life has no opposite. You know, because that's the thing, is that our human minds, it's easy to think black and white, hot and cold, male and female, life and death. But what he says is death is not the opposite of life. Life has no opposite. And I think that we were talking about this the last time I was talking, is it's about seeing beyond the illusion of opposites, and recognizing sort of the unity behind that underlies all experience. So when I look at you, I can see 30 different individuals, but an awakened being could see, yeah, just one. Yeah. So yeah, this is fun. I love, one of my traits, I'm a teacher. I love it. So this is fun for me. So how about you guys? Any insights about or thoughts about immortality, death?
I've always had an understanding of the individual that you know that has only left that shell, but they actually exist in everyone else that you meet. So it's like all the bits and pieces of them are in everyone else. Because you say, you know, you're back with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And you may say that to a bunch of folks.
Yeah.
But all of them are a composition of that person that you once knew. And that's because that's what they did. They just went back.
Yeah.
Reappear again. Sometimes it may be an accident.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much how I see it. So I see it as the forms that we're in now. It's just we have the soul, which is the host, and it's just taking the form of the body that we're in.
Mm-hmm.
And it's time for this to expire. It's going to go through.
So you're right. Your concept is that after we leave this body, our spirit goes back to rejoin humanity as a whole, consciousness as a whole, and then that re-manifests out in. Yeah, and I've heard that idea too. That like Jesus, like the concept of Jesus, that he has been like reincarnated as maybe 100 different people. You know, maybe not just one person reincarnates into one person, but like Jesus, after he died, he goes back into the totality and then is reincarnated into maybe 1,000 or 1,000,000 different people. So we all have some connection to that life that was Jesus.
And to me, it's like it's always been.
Sorry?
We've always been connected.
Yeah.
Regardless of how we know we are or know that we're not, we're always been connected. Because there's always something that comes to you that may not be of your thought, but you'll just be like, well, how did you make this? I don't know. I just did. but it was something that happened.
Yeah.
And it happens, those type of things happen mostly when you don't have a thought pattern. And things come.
Yes, when you're not thinking.
You're not thinking.
Yeah.
There's nothing there.
Yes. Today I can talk. I'm like, today I had this, so Lola, Lola and we're married, so we kind of talk, and we share ideas. Sometimes she'll say, oh, I'm thinking this, and I'm like, and I don't always say, I'm the one who kind of thinks about, I don't open my mouth right away. She's the day, this idea of oneness, that we're all one. She said, the way that she kind of tries these things out on me to see it like a litmus test. And so she said, the way that we know that we're all one is because if there's like a little kid there's a little kid in the street and there's a car coming, that she said anybody would run and save the kid and that is a recognition of oneness. Because I'm one with that kid, because I saved the kid, I'm saving myself. Because I know that I'm connected to that kid, and I'm going to save the kid because I'm one with myself, or I'm one with the kid. So, and I'm like, okay, like that's an interesting thought. But then, to your point, I was on the train today, and a homeless guy got on the train, and he smelled bad, and I'm thinking about what Lola was saying, and I'm saying, but I'm not, and I'm thinking about the kid too, because the reality is, and I'm a little bit of a cynic, I'm like, in my opinion, I'm a realist, I guess. In my opinion, there may be people who don't save the kid because I don't want to get hit by a car, Yeah, but because I'm thinking, and then it comes to this idea of but the underlying distinction that I made is that if I am in that space of no thought, if I'm in that space of not identify, so what it was I was walking the train today. I'm a landscape designer. I'm really busy this time of year, and I'm walking around thinking about everything I have to do and how I'm going to get it all done, and I'm thinking and thinking and thinking. I'm in that world of life is happening by me. Remember the 4 kingdoms of consciousness? So I like to be in the for me. Life is happening for me, but I'm in the by me. So as I'm thinking, I'm like, I become aware of my thinking, and I'm watching how constricted my identity is becoming. Like my identity is all about my work and all about my projects, and who I am is this really constricted person. It's very intense and full of thought. And then I get on the train and there's this homeless guy, and I'm like, and I actually listening to some music. I'm trying to like lighten my perception of myself. I'm trying to open and expand to this idea of oneness and thoughtlessness, trying to relax my thoughts so I can experience joy and oneness. And anyhow, but yeah, the distinction that I made was that when I am all wrapped up in my thoughts, I probably wouldn't save that kid. If I'm all wrapped up in my identity and who I am, in my own self-preservation, I'm not going to save the kid. But if I'm in that space of like life is happening for me, and I'm in the ability, I'm able to be clear in my world. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it's like I think any of us could save that kid very selflessly. However, I think most of us, because of the way society is and how busy we all are and how important everything becomes to us, and we get so identified with this physical that I think that, I don't know, I question if we would actually save that kid.
Because if, going back to your theory about the kid in the street and the cars coming, instinctively, some people would just jump out there and save the kid and maybe be killed by the car.
Mm-hmm.
When you're standing on the sidewalk, you're not saying, I'm going to give my life for this other person.
Yeah, you don't have time to think.
You
Really?
can't think.
Yeah.
That's a selfless act, And you don't even say it's a selfless act. You just react.
Yeah.
You do it. the outcome could be that you're killed in doing this, saving this kid. And on the 10 o'clock news, you're called a hero,
Mm-hmm.
right? But are you really, you're just helping another human being out.
Well, do you think if you're dead, do you think you'll care?
Well, no.
I mean, I wouldn't care if somebody's calling me a hero on the news. I'm like,
Well,
at that point,
say for example, you were hit by the car, you didn't die right away,
yeah, okay.
okay? And you're
So
lying-
a slow, painful death.
You're lying, boy, was this really stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or if someone's like in a rip tide or rip where the stream's going, it's like then you can have a minute to think. I think
Riptide,
it's like, okay, do I want to reach out and give them a stick or do something, and
Yeah.
then you could get pulled in, and like,
Yeah. Well, what I know about Lola is she absolutely would do that. She would, beyond any doubt, she would save the kid. But I think for me, I might be standing there thinking, now what speed is that car traveling? Do I have time to run over there? Yeah, exactly. I'd be like doing calculations.
That's great, yeah.
Yeah, well, this is the thing, and this is where, okay, and I missed kind of an important, I sort of skipped a step in my thought process because I was Googling, so, because I've been pondering what Lola shared, and it's not so much, I think she absolutely would save that kid, but for me, I'm like, I don't know that I would, and I've been kind of being with that, like, what is that about? And the parable of the Good Samaritan came to my mind, because in that case, I didn't go to church as a kid, so excuse me, but my understanding is that there's a guy laying on the side of the street who's like been battered or hurt or declothed, like he's doesn't have any clothes or something, and like a priest. The question is something like, something about like a neighbor. The question to Jesus was something about, and help me out, something about like a neighbor, like who do you call I don't know. Well, we'll get to that part, but anyhow, there's the guy is laying on the side of the road, visibly in pain, basically, and then the priest walks by, and the priest, being the most spiritual of people, you would think would stop to help this person, but I guess the person is a Samaritan, sort of an unclean person back in that time. No, sorry, it's not I'm totally messing it up. But for some reason, the person's unclean. The person's laying on the Samaritan stopped. The Samaritan was the one who stopped, actually.
Right, the guy who's on the ground, he's considered ceremonially unclean. And when priests are going into, back in that time, when priests were going into the church, they literally could not touch anything that was unclean because it would contaminate the temple. Like the temple would be unclean. So they couldn't, it was almost like it wasn't necessarily he was intentionally trying to be rude. It was just, he was going by the law. He was going by what he knew to be the law.
That's the law.
Right.
But that's not, but the thing is, inside of us,
Right.
there's a deeper truth that transcends the law of our times that's man-made,
Don had a good point. What if it wasn't a kid? What if it was the homeless man?
Well, that's where I was getting, that was what I was getting to this, is with the homeless man. But in the end, of this Good Samaritan story, what happens is somebody who's not considered that holy walks by and actually helps the person. And so I don't know, the point is, look, the priest or the minister might not help save the kid, but an ordinary person would, perhaps. So in the case of the kid, I sort of translated that to the person, the Good Samaritan. And then the homeless person on the train felt to me like the Good Samaritan. It's like he's sitting there, he's smelling when I was on the train, I was just being compassionate. I was kind of relating, I could tell nobody was wanting to look at him. Nobody was wanting to talk to him. Nobody's wanting to stand near him. I'm just thinking how lonely that must be to be that person. And then, I was thinking about the whole way here today. And then too, that idea of immortality, how does that happen that somebody comes in and has that life experience and knowing what we know, what we believe about that we're all essentially equivalents or, you know, emanations of God or whatever. It's like, but it shows up in such, you know, ways that seem so unpleasant, you know? And then, so I don't know, for the rest of us, it's like, what's our responsibility? You know, for somebody like that, like for the homeless person, it's like, I don't have to throw myself in front of a car to help him, you know, but how can I help him, you know? And is it giving him money, giving him a home, helping, you know, I don't know.
We tap into, you know, even with that concept of throwing our ideas out of the way.
Yeah.
You know, like one of the things that when I think about in that is that, you know, we've judged the priests in for the sake of the parable of what they did, but sometimes, what if it was a setup for that Good Samaritan? You know what I'm saying? What if that was intentionally for the Good Samaritan? And like, even with thinking about the child in the car, you know, I know for me, when I'm in tune spiritually, when I'm like really in tune and I'm in that kind of floating space where I'm like on it and I'm like feeling the spirit and I'm feeling like really connected, I may not help the child, but I make sure it's help flag down their car. And say, hey, there's a, you know, like.
Oh yeah,
if
stop
I'm
the
in
car.
that spiritual place,
Yeah.
it may be
Just
something different.
Yeah,
that I may do, that I spiritually feel
Yeah.
led to do, or get the strong man who is jogging and say, hey, could you I'm a flag down, you know, whatever in that instance, just to go by spirit. So I really like to tap into. And that's why I think meditation and those sorts of things are really helpful with, is that I'm able to attune to what's truly needed in that moment, not what I feel.
Exactly.
Because you'll feel guilty, man, I should have pushed the child out the way, but I really didn't feel led to. Maybe it wasn't for you to.
Yeah, and with the homeless guy on the train, it's like I could have imposed my thought that he needed money, or he needed a home, or he needed a bath.
Right.
I could have said, oh, he needs this, this, and this, and this. But actually, when I saw him, he actually seemed kind of happy. You know? He didn't seem miserable. Like I thought he'd seem miserable. But when I looked at him, I'm like, he doesn't.
We give people stories. I speak for myself. I recognize that I give people stories when I don't want to deal with the unknown. When I have to make it have some conclusion or some story that helps me feel better about the situation, instead of just leaving it to that space of unknown. Like, some things are just are, and it's not for me to figure out in that moment. And that's really a fearful space sometimes.
Yeah.
I know if I live longer, you know, leave it up to the understanding and try not to put myself in life up. I just understand that it's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
And then I live
exactly.
my mind take over. It's all our trouble that happens.
Yeah, I like that. Just, it's sort of like when, in the beginning of class, Lola was sort of critiquing Bob's blessing on the class and invocation, and she said, and let's not make up that there's anything wrong with how the world is already. You know, it's okay. I mean, just like any of these ideas, like that idea in itself, I'm like, wow. It's okay. It's okay that this guy is homeless and that he hasn't, you know, taken a bath or whatever. He just smells, but it's okay.
You don't understand the process. It's just
I
like
have-
when Christian missionaries or those missionaries go into those other places and say having multiple wives is wrong, when actually that community thrives off of the cattle that they receive from having multiple wives in the marriage. That in order to purchase the wife, they have to have the cattle. It's like, so in other words, it's just a process, and we'll come in and think that it's better one way.
And we try to fix it.
And we're actually causing catastrophic events to happen because we're messing with something that may be working.
Yeah.
I just want to say one thing about that. I have a family member that has been homeless, that has had the smelliness around them, and I'm very close to them. And so I had a conversation because I kept trying to give them a car. I had 2 cars, and they didn't want a car because he said that he wouldn't be able to be on the bus and interact with people. He liked interacting with people. And he said his greatest, and one day I just said, and I thought about it, because this went on for years, I said, are you happy? He said, I'm very happy. He said, you know what, the biggest, the place where I don't get a lot of joy is because I feel like I'm not living up to your standard.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa.
That's
So from that time on, he can be smelly, and I just said, look, can you move
Yeah.
And so we had this thing that, I don't judge him. Based
Yeah.
on who he is and what
Yeah.
because he's happy doing what he's
Yeah. And if you
He
think
says-
about it from their perspective, perhaps, it's like he doesn't have a lot to worry about.
No. And
You know, like they say, more money, more problems. You know, so it's like I
give him a car.
Yeah, I have to worry about a mortgage, a car, you know, keeping the kids something, you know, keeping them alive. But it's like if I didn't have kids, if I didn't have a car, if I didn't have money, I mean, my problems would be food, shelter, you know, and personal hygiene, perhaps. I don't know. Perhaps, yeah.
Riding the up.
Yeah, yeah, just so yeah. So yeah, this, I don't know. I think this is an interesting topic of immortality, and did anybody sort of uncover anything about what you believe that?
Question about hell. Do you believe in hell?
Yeah.
My thought was, I think we make our own hell right here on earth, and I don't think there's a duality. Since I've become the ability of real life, there's no duality. You know, this hell is an illusion created by people, and I don't think it exists.
Yeah.
Kind of what I thought is that I even from when I was a child, hell just didn't mean anything. I mean, now that I'm older and, you know, I'm in this teaching and all of that, I can intellectualize it now, but at that point, it just didn't really. Didn't matter.
So do you recognize hell as something that's sort of self-imposed?
I thought it was a state of mind.
Mm-hmm.
Be in heaven 1 minute, and your mind could put you elsewhere.
Mm-hmm. The next.
I think hell's where all the good parties are.
For me, I think I don't like the thought of hell because it makes it seem like you've always done something bad and deserve to spend the rest of your life in hell. If life is an experience and you're supposed to grow and learn, but it's like, I don't know, the whole concept of hell, I just always hated that. You're gonna be damned for the rest of eternal life? Really? Is that a loving God?
And my question with that was, let's say whatever it is, you're gonna be doing it for eternity. But what happens when you're okay with that? Do you go to another hell?
So when you get used to it. Yeah. You're like, yeah. Yeah, they throw you up north. Put you in like an everlasting Chicago winter. Yeah, I the way I haven't really thought about hell. Like if I go way back, the thing that comes to mind is HE double hockey sticks, and I literally like imagine I see the hockey sticks, you know, for some reason. That's the only little bit of hell I have in my mind. But in terms of like the traditional hell that I sort of was raised around, but now, and the way I think of it, like the way I've heard it said, is that hell is the perception that your suffering will never end. So in terms of translating this idea of never-ending suffering, you know, it's simply like the thought that my now suffering, so I'm suffering now, and my imagination is sort of perpetuating that into my future. And I am having this experience that this suffering will never end. So it's like a feeling, a personal now moment experience of imagined unending suffering and hopelessness. And if you let's see the book, The Teaching of Abraham Hicks. If you look, they have this spectrum from the top to bottom, and the highest at the top, the best feeling of heaven, if you will. They don't call it heaven and hell, but the top of the scale is like joy and love, and I don't know what else. Probably those three, the PJ and whatever, PB and J. Power, beauty, joy is at the top. And at the bottom of their spectrum, I mean, there's anger, there's restlessness, there's indifference, there's all the kinds of other things between that really top high experience and the really low experience. And I'm pretty sure at the bottom is that concept of hopelessness. And above that, there's anger. So, we can think that anger is a bad feeling. It's an unpleasant feeling maybe, but it's still a hell of a lot better than hopelessness. Exactly, yeah. So
You don't have to go from despair to like
yes,
joy.
exactly,
Like,
despair,
up
yeah.
the ladder.
Yeah. Yeah, despair.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, that's how the Abraham Hicks teaching is you always are trying to kind of get up to the next rung on the ladder. So you can go from despair to, I don't know what the one is above that, but maybe it's anger's probably not. But revenge, yeah, revenge is on it. Yeah, revenge. And then, see, but the funny thing is, even there's some good feeling that comes out of revenge. I love it. It sounds exciting, compared to despair. And that's the thing. You're always looking for the next highest thought, and then after revenge, I think is anger, and then eventually you kind of come up to like complacency, and then above that is like hopefulness. It's possible. It's sort of like to your prayer, hopefulness was there. I hope that this could change. And then you kind of keep going up and up and up, and pretty soon you're just living in that power of gratitude and joy and Christ consciousness, and that could be heaven. If hell is down there, yeah.
Bringing them up, it's been very interesting, I think, if you listen to them ongoingly, to hear Esther's experience dealing with Jerry's death.
Okay.
I have not lost anyone super close to me.
Yeah.
I've had peripheral relatives pass away, but no one that I felt really personally connected to, where it was like a giant loss like that. And so, hearing her experience of being in that loss and then finding that connection with him again and how she goes in and out of it.
I haven't even heard that. I have to hear it. No.
Oh, it's Abraham Hicks. So, yeah, she talks about how it's only when she's in that high vibrational place that she has access to him. That when she's in an experience of loss, he is nowhere to be found, and she can feel no connection to him whatsoever. And that he will kind of sneak up on her when she's in her highest vibrational moments. That he's in this state of pure positive energy, so she has access to him when she's in the state of pure positive energy. And hearing her talk about
that's beautiful.
Connection is really powerful.
Yeah. And the other thing about the teachings of Abraham's, for example, is so what they call Abraham is this sort of voice, or this, I don't know, but Abraham identifies itself as a collection of spirits who all have the same purpose, which I believe has to do with the awakening of human consciousness or something like that. So even Abraham is a collection of spirits. And so, yeah, I mean, that's that. Listening to that.
It was never a person. Oh my gosh, I'm funny.
Yeah, no, when they speak, I think they say we. Yeah. But they call themselves Abraham. Yeah.
When I first started reading that book, I think, I guess I was in library kind of mode. And it was kind of scary at first when I first started reading.
Yeah.
But then as I read on,
some of the things, this wasn't what Abraham was saying, just some of the things that were being said and talked about made sense.
Yeah.
It wasn't about who was saying.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and so when Lola was talking earlier about the Christian church and sort of the evolution of Christian perspective about homosexuality being wrong one moment and then perhaps right the next, you know. I think there's a similar progression kind of happening when it comes to this idea, this notion of God. And what's interesting to me in terms of spiritual books and my own spiritual progression is I started with this book, many of you probably know, it's called Conversations with God. In that case, the author, Neale Donald Walsch, was talking to God, who was, in my experience, when I was reading that book, it felt like actually God, the voice of God was an audiobook. I listened, and it was read by this guy who's an actor. I forget the guy's name, but he has a deep, dark, deep voice, a very godlike voice. I can't. It's not James Earl Jones, but it's somebody like that with like a real deep voice, sounds like God, you know, kind of like Morgan Freeman or something like that. But anyhow, it felt like, so this guy, this man on this form is communicating with this God who, in my mind, now they alternated between a man's voice and a woman's voice to try to unassociate it with just being a man, but it still felt like he was talking to a person. And the book was written Conversations with God, so it was like a conversation with another person. And that was that idea of God that was early in my experience. But then going to this idea of Abraham and Esther talking then to a collection of spirits that might as well be God, you know? So it's like this concept of God, it starts off sort of small and limited by like an old man with a gray beard, and eventually it's becoming more, the more we learn, I think, through this work, the more we uncover that, or it actually unravels into some kind of amorphous energy that, you know, is organized. And like in the reading, they were talking about the great mystery. I don't know, I can't remember where that was, but anyway. So we kind of have talked quite a bit. I'm trying to see if we have enough time. My thought is that we could break up into small groups, and this actually, so if we could kind of, I would break up into, I would guess we could do 3 groups, the back row, the next row. So the back 3 rows, each of you guys would be one group, and the 3 of you would go to one of those groups. And actually, maybe it would be, actually, let me rethink, that's a little bit maybe too big. Yeah, that's fine. Let's just go with that. And then we'll do my dear life letter. And the question, sort of the sentence stem, you don't need to read it, but
Okay.
this was on page 207. But I think just finishing the sentence stem, one thing I would like to contribute to the world is, and then what it would take for me to do this is. So you guys all have that page? So, you know, allow yourselves 10 minutes to kind of, just do 2 sentences. One thing I'd like to contribute to the world is, and what it would take for me to do this is, in 2 sentences, and then the next person. And at the end, what we'll just do is, we'll meet over there after you guys are done. We'll meet over there, and we'll do a closing blessing after to set us on our way. All right, break. You don't need, you can move your chairs if you want, or sit on the floor in a circle. Sharon.
My boss.
Well, it's the same thing, I do about it, right? No, I don't, so creation of opportunities for people applying the foundation, help young people realize their full potential. Anyway, so, and then what would it take me to do that? Well, I have to completely abandon fear and doubt. Yeah, right, so how do we,
I read it from a blogger, but basically one thing I'd like to do.
Teach people, teach young people,
Just, there's no.
to see the opportunities and the challenges, and to make a big noise in the dream.
So what I would do when you do this is to start, just what can you do to what systems the comments.
All the things that are going on like farmers plowing it.
What's good?
So, I think I'll be Mark and like Vermont, politically and proposal quality. Studying myself. Oh, yeah, so, yeah, that's, it would take me actually focusing on that.
Dang it.
So much good. So much, all right. I'm gonna break it before. Keep it out. See backwards.
You have something.
So I said, one thing that I contributed to the world is, when you know about the lives, because in my life, it's always
What is it?
what patterns you go on. When I finally opened up to it a few years ago, it was She's just sharing it with others. So she's just talking. I have more blocks to love myself, to love others, to bring one other people's lives, and being able to set this over. Yeah, I actually had a commercial. So I said, we have a people like creative vibrancy and this connection to create the world or whatever energy you need to make that change happen. So I like I said, but like just being there to witness and support and like shoot like whatever. So, you know, what would it take to do that? You know, inner commitment, stepping out of my comfort zone and, you know, actively deviating away from like you know, like the apathy and just like posting a lot and like really showing up. Well, but
I do a lot when I'm driving. I forget people. I also forget myself.
yeah, no. She's, oh, I share yours. Oh, well.
That's why I like to read.
Online education is something that I do for other types of yeah, so yeah, definitely gonna need other opportunities. I don't have it myself, but still, I would like to create some. So
Yeah, I think that you are trying, you know, when you say it's like do something, you don't know about it. It's almost, to me, it's almost easier. It's like, you know, consider why you do something. So it's like fresh.
Yes.
Actually experience what it feels like to not have it.
Yeah. And it's gonna go by really slowly. I haven't started. I wasn't sure actually what. Yeah. Like, I learned or say.
Oh, yeah. Told you you'd be missing out.
Do what? Say what? Yeah.
Yeah. Talk about reincarnation. I was explaining my dad's book, The Theories of Life After Life. And then this one, Barb was saying she wants to be reincarnated as a gnat. Their concept is that,
I know. Can I give you a little bit of feedback? When I started my system, it actually didn't like you can just let them go this morning. You didn't let them just like and it's sort of like really odd. I'm sorry. It's like the question is always like, what I'm going to add be helpful.
For me.
Yeah. Well, all questions. If I'm about to say something, move this forward, or slow it down, or distract, or.
Alright, well, I think we did together is to play out. Would you nominate somebody?
Yeah. We're gonna get Ray out. It didn't sound like I said funny words. We're gonna pray out, you guys.
We're still looking at the one thing, but we've just been really busy.
Answers about life after life.
Life after life.
No, life after life.
I have one question before we pray out. Have you guys continued praying for our partners this week? No. I was supposed to keep that going? Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, the idea is to continue developing that relationship. So if you have let it fall apart, I would encourage you to make the last week count.
My partner told me that we're not supposed to do it, and that's why I was like, oh, they were like, that was the only week. And I was like, oh, yeah, so thank you for clarity.
Yeah. So is there anyone in here other than Barb that didn't get a prayer partner?
My person is.
Dropped? Great. Janie and Barb, will you make sure yours dropped also?
We had a couple that.
Oh, okay.
Fill it in and begin with someone too.
What did you say? I don't know. Who is yours? No, she's still here. Yeah, she's at a wedding, that's why she's not here. Godfrey and Monkey, and Barb and Janie. So make sure you guys exchange information. And at this point, and I apologize if this wasn't more clear, but at this point, you guys have a handle on the 5 steps of prayer. So you should be practicing them. Yeah, awesome. So who feels excited to do a ruta? What, anybody know what the synonym for ruta is? What is it? Benediction. Awesome. Do you feel excited to do a benediction?
I did one once, so I don't know.
Awesome. Oh, you did one once?
I did a Korean one.
You did pray. Okay, does anyone else feel really called to do a benediction? You're it, sister.
All right. We recognize that there is one power, one presence here in this space, in the universe, and in our lives, and that is God, that is goodness, that is wholeness, that is perfection, that is harmony, that is grace. And we know that we are one with this presence, that we are God, we are harmony, we are abundance, we are perfection. And so we give thanks for the time we had together tonight. We give thanks for this experience and the sharing. And we just are really grateful and we go on the rest of our lives in this gratitude. So we say, so it is.
So it is.
Yeah.
You guys must have had a good class because Nathan's vibrating. Whenever Nathan vibrates, it's like, oh, something's happening. When Nathan and I first met, he was like this. I was like, oh my gosh, what's wrong? Is that true?
There's a little bit of backstory to that. That's actually shaking. Vibrating is before vibrating comes before shaking. Yeah, it's a very intense experience. But good, in a good way.
If you'd like to know more about that, you can reach out to me. All right, good night, you
Oh,